Welcome back, welcome back. The row over homosexuality continues to threaten to break up the Anglican branch of the Christian Church. The division erupted following the ordination by the US Episcopal Church, that's what the Anglican Church in America is called, of the openly gay Gene Robinson as Bishop of New Hampshire. Last week, bishops from the Episcopal Church did, however, pledge not to consecrate any more openly gay bishops, at least for the time being. But traditionalists in the church claim that homosexuality is against the teachings of the Bible and that the damage has already been done. Earlier this month, the Reverend John Guernsey, the rector of All Saints Episcopal Church in Virginia, travelled to Uganda, where he was consecrated as a bishop of the Church of Uganda, but based in Virginia. He joins me now from Washington. Bishop Guernsey, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Sir David. It's great to be with you.
Tell me, what does the Church of Uganda, as it were, offer you and your congregation that the Episcopal Church didn't?
The Church of Uganda has a tremendous passion for the gospel, a deep commitment to the authority of the Bible, and an unashamed willingness to proclaim the good news of Jesus Christ and his transforming power. Sadly, the Episcopal Church has largely walked away from those commitments. Many leaders and bishops openly defy the teachings of Scripture and the teachings of the historic Christian faith. And so we turn to a part of the worldwide Anglican Communion that would give us that protection, that oversight, and that encouragement to go forward with our mission.
And you said there some of the things that particularly matter to you and your congregation and so on. Was the gay bishops' row, was that a trigger for all of this or an afterthought?
Well, it's certainly become the presenting issue. It's what people focus on, but it's important because the church has said, in effect, we know better than the Bible. We are overtly going to defy the teachings of the Bible, and in so doing, overturn the authority of Scripture itself. And it's that abandonment of the historic faith and the authority of Scripture that makes this issue as significant as it is.
And in fact, Archbishop Akinola of the Nigerian Church, he said on this issue, he said, as you probably read, that he called homosexuality or homosexual activity a, quote, satanic attack on the church. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think that it's important to understand that, as Scripture says, that our enemies are not people. We are contending for the truth of the gospel and sharing Jesus' unconditional love with every person, including those who are attracted to persons of the same sex. All of us struggle with issues of sexuality. We all need God's healing and God's transforming power. And so we're absolutely clear that there's God's unconditional love, God's transforming power for every one of us.
For every one of us, as you say, it's views, it's beliefs, rather than enmity of people. Can you see any way out of this impasse, or really is it now crystallized as the fact that the two wings of the Anglican Church are going to go in different directions?
Well, many have described it as not just two wings of the church, but really seemingly two religions, as people have really abandoned the historic faith of the church. And unless there's a turning back to the authority of Scripture and the teachings of the Christian faith, it's hard to see how this can be brought together. You can't reconcile these two contradictory and competing truths.
What do you think will be the situation, Bishop Guernsey, in 10 years' time? What will be the vision we see of the church in America and Uganda?
I think we're seeing a global shift that many have commented on, where the leadership of the Christian faith is moving from the materialistic and secularized West to an emerging and vibrant and dynamic and rapidly growing church in Africa, Asia, Latin America. I think we'll see a clear global leadership of the Christian church of many traditions and denominations being centered in the global South. And I think that that will be a vibrant, dynamic enlivening of the church that will be of historic proportions.
Thank you very much indeed, Bishop Guernsey, and for that vision of what you see will be the shape of it all in 10 years' time. Thank you very much for joining us.
It's a privilege to be with you, Sir David. Thank you very much.
Well, from Uganda to Kiev and the Ukraine. 3 years after thousands of protesters took to the streets of Kiev to launch the Orange Revolution, the Orange parties are once again on the brink of victory, following last Sunday's snap parliamentary election in Ukraine. A near final tally gives the pro-Western alliance of Yulia Tymoshenko and President Viktor Yushchenko a slim lead over their rival, the rival being Prime Minister Viktor Yanukovych. However, Russian-leaning Mr. Yanukovych, whose party won the single biggest share of the vote, all very confusing, has also claimed victory, understandably, I suppose, with political wranglings set to continue. I'm joined now by Roman Zvarych, a former Justice Minister, ally of President Viktor Yushchenko. Welcome, Roman. Good to have you with us.
Hi, David.
Are you...
Thanks. My pleasure.
Thank you. Are you 100% sure that this will be victory, or could something upset your team's victory?
I don't see how, David. The vote count stands at 98.98%. In other words, only 5 out of 34,000 precinct stations have yet to tally the results of the elections in their specific area. This will not affect the final voting results. In other words, we have a lead, a slim lead, but nonetheless, together with the Yulia Tymoshenko bloc of 4 MPs in Ukraine's parliament.
Yes, so the situation is at the moment, however, as he will doubtless say for some time to come, Mr. Yanukovych did poll the largest number. Is there any way that he could upset your coalition by luring one of the 2 partners away to join him?
No, that's impossible. We have a, between the 2 political parties, in other words, with the bloc, Yulia Tymoshenko bloc, and with our bloc, we have a signed agreement that was put into force, I believe it was in February of this year, which specifically states that we will be forming a coalition after these elections, and we do not expect our partners to break this obligation, and of course we will not be.
So that there's no opening there. It's written in ink, as they say. This deal,
that's right. Yes, that sure
coalition is written in ink.
In fact, there's still a possibility to incorporate as a minority partner in our coalition the former Parliament Speaker, Mr. Litvin, who ran separately. He had his own bloc. He was able to ensure the election of 20 MPs. In fact, this is something that is still up in the air. I'm sure it will be something that we will be discussing together with the President and what we hope to be the next Prime Minister of Ukraine, Ms. Tymoshenko.
Right, and everybody admires the way that I think The Economist calls them predominantly fair elections, and that you've achieved that in Ukraine is something terrific. Was there, some people have said there was some vote rigging. Do you think that's true?
I can't really say that yet, David. I mean, it's too early to say that. We identified what we call anomalies in several polling stations. An anomaly, for instance, can be identified by our experts if, for instance, one of the parties in the last election, which was, of course, only a year and a half ago, took, let's say, 25%, and all of a sudden he has a 25% jump, taking 50% in this election. That indicates to us that there may have been some kind of, as you put it, electoral rigging. And we will, of course, be checking into this further. But to say that there was any fraud in these elections, I would be very hesitant to say that. I would generally agree with the assessment of the international observers that the elections were free and fair, and probably the most democratic elections that have ever taken place in Ukraine.
And Ms. Tymoshenko said this week that she remained as passionate about the European Union, but she's been going slow, more quietly on NATO and so on.
Right.
Do you see that as following through as a policy? And it still means that you are facing towards the West as a country more than to the East, yeah?
Clearly, this particular coalition will be European-oriented, and I would also say that we will be much more interested in establishing a closer partnership relationship with NATO. Regarding the European Union, we're hoping to finally ink an enhanced partnership and cooperation agreement, which will place Ukraine in a unique situation. Hopefully, part of the deal that we're trying to strike with Brussels would include a free trade zone, perhaps not now, but in the future. Regarding NATO membership, clearly our party and, of course, the President has been outspoken in favor of Ukraine at least initiating negotiations regarding a MAP agreement, a membership action plan agreement with Brussels. And of course, we would like to see an accelerated track sometime in the future regarding that question.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Roman. We appreciate it very much indeed. It's a fascinating situation. You're confident that your coalition will prevail, and we'll be keeping in touch with you and the country along the way. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I'm sure we'll be following that story closely over the coming weeks. But for this week, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. So join me again, won't you, in 7 days' time for another Frost Over the World.